Are restaurant kitchens a microcosm or a cautionary tale for how humans can live in relationship with one another? Man, if only there was a show that could help us answer that question. Well, there is, gang, and I am super excited about this episode. Happy Thanksgiving, friends. Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. Because it is Thanksgiving, we're going to discuss one of my favorite shows of the last few years, The Bear. And I can't do this alone. I don't want to do this episode alone. So I'm gonna bring some co-hosts, some co-hosts that I'm super grateful for, super thankful for. Some of them have been in the restaurant business. They're cooks, they're chefs. If they're like me, they like to eat. I've waited tables before, so yeah, we're around this, and this show is fantastic. So I'm gonna bring my friends here with me to the show. Welcome, Liz, sometimes known as Pang, Evan, and Joe, who I love his thing, chef beard. Yeah, there you go. And my little tagline beneath my name is Heard. Heard. Now I know what that means when you're in the restaurant because of this show. Hey, before we get into the meat of the show to discuss the fantastic show that is The Bear, I would like to ask you guys a question. Since it is Thanksgiving and this is debuting on Thanksgiving, what is one Thanksgiving food that you geek out about the most? And again, we could spend a whole episode on this particular question itself, but just to get a snapshot of who you are and what you're up to. What is the Thanksgiving food you geek out the most about? Joe, we're gonna start with you. Go counterclockwise.
I got to go with sweet potatoes. I have to fundamentally say right from the gate that I have far too much respect for sweet potatoes to pollute them with marshmallows,
Oh,
but absolutely by far and away my favorite Thanksgiving food.
oh man, starting off hot already. Some heretical talk there about how you do sweet potato casserole. I love that. Yeah, you're making me hungry for that. I like that one too. I'm not a big sweet potato fan, but I do like that casserole, especially when you put a little marshmallows on
I
top.
am.
Evan, how about you, buddy?
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to some pecan pie. Very much looking forward to that. That
Okay.
stuff I serious or like I see it in the stores throughout the year, and I make it a point to not eat it
Ah.
to like save it for here. So
Little
yeah,
self-control,
yeah, yeah,
so that it's special on Thanksgiving. I
yep.
like that. All right, Liz. What's your go-to? And
I
not
would.
buffalo dip. You can't say buffalo dip.
Well, yeah, I'm still angry about that. You just had to be here before the show to know.
That's right.
So I would say stuffing because that's a hit or a miss. It's hard to get right.
Yeah,
That's a close
Sure.
second for me. Yeah.
that's good. That's
And
good.
then you got the gravy to come on top of it, like it compounds,
Nice. I I think mine. What I look forward to is I'm not a huge turkey fan. Like I don't eat like turkey sandwiches a lot or just like sliced turkey. But
Yeah.
man, if you got a good brined, seasoned turkey for Thanksgiving Day, I'm the person who's there when you're cutting it, picking at it, grabbing the skin, taking the wing, taking the leg, and I'm like sneaking off in the corner like a puppy that just stole like a good piece of meat off somebody's plate, and I'm in the corner eating it before the dinner even starts. So like they know, my family knows not to cut the turkey or give me a job to do somewhere else in another room or home while they're carving the turkey, because I'm gonna be right there picking out the whole time. So yeah, with those foods, I think we could have ourselves a good little meal here. Yeah, and like we said, welcome to another episode. And on this Thanksgiving Day, we have so much to be thankful for. We have so much to geek out on. And I've been wanting to do this episode a while just because there's been 3 seasons of The Bear, and we're going to discuss all 3 seasons, or just kind of the overall impact and what this show, The Bear, discusses or shows to us or reveals to us. And we'll confess right now that if we missed something, missed an episode, missed a character, missed a theme, yeah, we probably will, because we're not going to talk about every kind of detail about the show. We would be here for weeks on end discussing. So we're just going to kind of get an overview and talk about the show. Some of us have watched each season. Some of us binge watched while they were on vacation. So it's fresh in their mind to talk about that. So I'm pretty excited about this. So let's get into it. First of all, how were you guys introduced to the show? Or were you late to the game? Were you there from the very beginning? Was it an assignment for a systematic ecology episode? How did you discover this one? Evan, we'll start with you, buddy.
Okay. Well, I came across the show on the social media. There were friends and there were blogs. They were talking all about it. So I waited till probably around season 2. I think it was halfway through season 2 when we started watching. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So you kind of felt that groundswell of the hype with the show,
Yeah.
and then you started, I gotta hop on this bandwagon and do that. Liz, how about you? How did you discover this show?
So apparently people would tell my husband I needed to watch this show. And I asked what platform, and he said Hulu. And I'm like, I'm not paying for Hulu just because no. And so I didn't care enough. And then Josh a month ago was like, can you watch this? So I asked like 3 people for Hulu and they could not share it. So then I was like, no. But then the knight in shining Joe came and was like, here's my Hulu last week. And I watched all 3 seasons in literally a week. And that is how I heard of The Bear.
Not all heroes wear capes, but man, they have beards though. And
they have
so
beards.
I love that. Yeah, Joe, how did you discover this show?
Oh, just about everybody and their mother that I still keep in contact with from the restaurant business was like, you got to watch this, you got to watch this, you got to watch this. Like, it's just one of those things that if you've worked in a restaurant, if you're in the industry, anything like that, this has been, since it started, the talk of the town.
Yeah, I was kind of late. I heard there were some people in my congregation, I guess in season 1. I don't know if I caught it, but like someone said, "Oh, if you're watching The Bear, there's a great Star Wars reference. You need to watch The Bear. I think you'd love it. It's great drama. It's on FX. You should watch it." But it was coming out kind of weekly. It hasn't been streamed yet, so I was like, "Okay, maybe I'll catch up with it later." But I think it was like Evan mid season 2. People were like, you have to watch this. And I bought the hype and I was like, all right, I'm gonna hop in. We caught up with other shows we were watching. So we started with season 1 and then finished season 2. And it was one of those family, my kids are in college and we often will FaceTime and watch a TV show once a week and say, what do you want to watch? And we'll kind of follow something together, watch together. So The Bear was our show that we watched together when they came home for holidays or for breaks. We watch it together. But yeah, I was gripped from the first moment that it hit my TV screen, and the soundtrack and the movement and the pacing and the relationships. I couldn't take my eyes and heart away from it. So we binged season 1, then 2, and then couldn't wait for season 3, and then we're there for season 3. My brother is a chef and a cook, and he is the same way. Like, I kept saying, dude, you have to watch this show. And he was like, I have a rule. Every time someone tells me I need to watch The Bear, I wait an extra month. So every time, so he was waiting. So it took him a long time to watch it, because every time I was like, and I made it a point, even when I saw him, I knew he had that rule. I would ask him, you watched The Bear yet? He was up another month. I got to wait another month. So, but eventually he got into it and loved it as well. So, yeah. And I think this show, like, if you have experience in the restaurant and or in the kitchen, it may be may trigger you, may be triggering.
Yes.
But if you don't have any experience in there, it's similar to like what I call Ted Lasso. It's a show about soccer, but you don't have to be a fan of soccer to enjoy the show, because it's more about the relationships and the coaching and the drama between the people that are in the show that really carries the weight. Soccer just happens to be the means and the tool, the dish that serves up the drama that's going on. And so this is the same way. You don't necessarily have to be have kitchen experience or restaurant experience to enjoy the show. It's really just, that's the means and the tool that it gives you to kind of get into these characters and minds and what's going on with the systems that they're wrestling with. So Yeah, so let's talk a little about what is the main story this show is trying to tell. Joe, I'm gonna go with you first. We'll kind of go around, and it's okay if we repeat with one another. But let's take a moment, a minute or two. What is the main story? If someone is like, oh, you watch The Bear, you're in an elevator with them, and they're like, what is that show about? How would you answer it?
So an all-star chef loses his brother to suicide, comes back and takes over his restaurant that he leaves to him, and it's processing relationships, it's processing grief, it's processing trauma, all with the backdrop of navigating a fish out of water dynamic is as he steps into this kitchen and tries to acclimate it and tries to save it while processing his own baggage and things like that. And you kind of get each person has their own processing that they need to do about things that have gone on in their own life or in relation to this character that we only know through flashbacks because he's already gone by the time the series starts.
Right.
And so you all the while are watching this one version of the restaurant go on in season 1, rebuilding a new restaurant in season 2, and then this new restaurant taking off in season 3.
Yeah, looking for that review. I love because you're just thrown. Golly, I'm gonna try to avoid like cooking puns. You're just thrown into the pot right away, and you're cooking, and you have these people. You have no idea what their backgrounds, but definitely they have a story, right? They're bringing with them their whole selves into this restaurant, and through flashbacks and throughout the season, you get to know them better, not only with one another, but flashbacks of where they came from and their background, what they're wrestling with, similar to like the TV show Lost did. You have these main characters, and then in flashbacks, you get to know them deeper and care for them even more because you get to see where they came from, who mentored them, why they are why they are the way they are. And so I love that aspect of it. Yeah, and that progress of that was there a sense that Carmy worked in this family restaurant before he went off to be an all-star chef, or was it just kind of his first time experience in that restaurant? Help me. Do you guys know?
In the brother's restaurant, no. The brother didn't let him, right?
No, but he's talking about, did he have kitchen experience before, or did he just start from the ground up? But it never clearly stated, because I was curious too, because it kept on saying what Norma is where he went to, but that's a restaurant. Yeah, that's not like a culinary school.
Yeah,
or anything.
Yeah. Noma's a fine dining restaurant. Carmy went off and went to the CIA and ended up as the head chef of one of the top restaurants in the country.
So he did go to CIA? I missed that part. Okay.
Yeah. So he went to CIA, and then he essentially went on to cook at what they're using as a stand-in for anybody who knows fine dining. It's kind of like a stand-in for 11 Madison Park in New York City. And so he goes and he's this top flight chef and all of that. Hears that his brother took his life, left him his restaurant. And so that's that fish out of water dynamic of he's gone from going off and accomplishing and doing and being this high caliber chef back to working at a beef joint in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like it's kind of a meat and three or a restaurant that has makes incredible sandwiches, and that restaurant has a reputation, but he has a reputation, and part of that reputation is he's known as like the top chef, that one of the best that's ever done it, and then there's that dynamic of that he left the family for a reason and then's come back for the family's reason. Some of them are resentful that he left them or went off to do what he did, and then he's back to kind of help, and so that kind of thing. Evan, is there anything if you had to mention like an elevator pitch, someone said, what's the show about? How would you describe it?
You know, just just like, man, like, no matter what's happened in the past, you can always do better. You can always start a new restaurant. You can always do something. You
Mm,
know, it's like
mm,
you can't let that stuff hinder you.
yeah.
And pretty much every character has different parts of that showcase that. So that's kind of what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, endings and beginnings, right? So we're always in this process of ending something and beginning a new thing, and then even in the midst of what you're doing, if you think you're going to do that forever, there's always new chapters, new turns, new things that come into you that you have to respond to. So there's always this kind of process of becoming, I guess you could say, for our process
Yeah.
friends. And what does
Yeah.
that look like for a restaurant or a chef or someone who's sharpening their craft and creativity and what that looks like. Liz, how about you? What if so you just watched this, you binged it, you know, Joe hooked you up. What your husband or someone says, what's your show about? What are you gonna tell them?
Freaking a stressful, toxic family. That
Yeah.
they literally had no reason to be that stressful and toxic, but that's what sells, I guess.
Yeah.
And I mean, some families, the reality, they function like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that too. Like this, it's definitely about a restaurant, the restaurant business, and a chef. But underneath this is these family dynamics, generational trauma, and how they function as a family and friends, and we'll get to some deeper themes later in terms of like mentorship, but also work-life balance and whether it's all worth it or not. You know, again, yeah, this show does deal with suicide, and so we don't take that lightly here at Systematic Ecology. For us who have wrestled with depression and had those thoughts, there's help out there. You're not alone in that. If you need help, reach out to us. But this show deals with that and what effect that has on family and friends around them, and how they wrestle with that grief in the midst of trying to cook good food or keep a business going and keep your head above water with the bills. And so all that, you know, how you live your life, how you keep your head above water, and then asking the question, is this all worth it or not, is definitely a question that rises to the surface for me in all seasons. And as Joe said, I like it that, like, yeah, you get a picture of this restaurant that he's been entrusted with, and then what he wants to turn it into in season 2, and the people that are there. And then with season 3, the high pressure, whether they're going to make themselves a name and be reviewed and get a Michelin star or not, and those kinds of things. And people are questioning whether that's their purpose or not. What are you chasing? Those kind of themes are there, I think, in this show. So before we get into like favorite like characters and scenes and episodes, I just, if someone said, you know, how do you rank this show, you know, 1 to 10, or your deep feelings about this? Does it live up to the hype? Is it your favorite show ever? Is it something like, oh, that was cool, that was a good ride, or you know, I don't need this? Evan, how about you? How would you rank it?
I would say maybe one of the top 3 shows of the past like 10 years
Yeah.
for me, like, because I related to so much to it, man, and they just executed it so well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Liz, how about you?
I appreciate it. I understand it. I did not enjoy watching it.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think you're meant to enjoy it.
no, I did not. And so for me personally, when I watch something, this is why I love anime. I love whimsical. I watch something to de-stress. And so I'm not saying it's not good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's well done. I related, being like, I worked in a 5-star, 5-diamond resort in the bake shop and stuff. So I understand the stress and working in the industry. So like I appreciated it, but I'm like, this was not an enjoyable watch for me personally. So for that, I'm gonna give it like a 4.
There
I
you
don't
go.
even know if I'm gonna watch season 4 or not, unless like we do a what's new
Yeah.
and Joe lets me continue. You know, I think I put my profile as temporary guest on his Hulu. So just let me know whenever season 4 comes out, and then I'll see it. But I mean, I appreciated
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And then like even the family dynamic, because with the mom, how she's like really narcissistic, and like it all trickles down. Like everyone, we are byproducts of our environment. It's just what it is, and we do get to choose. But at the end of the day, we are byproducts of our environment, and so it's really relatable to an average person who may have had a narcissistic mom who feels like everyone hates them, when it's like, no, we love you, we want to help you. Or and granted, suicide, like you said, like never good, but in the moment, as someone who has had those thoughts and who have like known people to, you know, go through with it, then you have to deal with almost like selfish siblings, you know what I mean? Because they don't get to suffer anymore. So you have to deal with the backlash of having a dead sibling. And so my sister passed away a few years ago. So like to me it was super relatable, but it was super stressful. And I'm like, nah, no, don't need this in my life. I'm here to disassociate. Why is this so close to home for me?
Yeah, that's a legit response. Like there's definitely like I recommend this show to folks, and Reagan say this. I'm with you, Evan. Like it's in my top 3 or top 5 in the last 5 or 10 years, just because I'm so gripped by it. But it's not for everybody, because
Very
it gets
true.
super toxic. It's fast paced. He's like, if your life is stressful and you don't need that stress in your life, then don't watch this show. I'm similar with that, but the Emmys, they classified it as a comedy. You didn't think it was funny, Liz?
No, I didn't. I don't think I laughed one time.
So
I
Not
know
one time.
there's
Like,
just some deep message boards and
why
memes
did
out
Richie
there.
get stabbed? Richie had no, like, it's just like this stupid thing that when she grabbed a freaking box cutter that wasn't, it was like dumb things like that. I'm like, why? It made me so angry and so frustrated. Now, I will say, are we going to talk about favorite character development later?
Yeah.
Are we doing that later? Okay, I'll wait.
Yeah. Joe, how about you? Do you feel like this is a comedy? Should it be classified as a comedy or dark comedy?
Yeah.
Cautionary tale?
So
what
I was really curious. To see, knowing that I'd be coming into this conversation with another chef, that like what the beat was, because that's there's been 2 responses from that I have seen out of chefs. People absolutely are over the moon about this, or people who are like, yo, I lived this, man. I don't need this in my life. I don't need to be like, when Will said that there are some people who are like, this is triggering mess for some people. Like, nah, that's not hyperbolic. I would have to hear a strong argument for any other show to top this one. Like this might be the masterclass for me. And it's funny because I sit on the mirror of Peng, where for all of the reasons, for every single thing that she mentioned, how relatable it all is, how much attention to detail that there is. Like, if you're watching this, you're like, okay, yeah, no, they took time. Like, there are some things that they play for dramatic effect. Like, there are some scenes you're like, okay, like this is very obviously where the drama show of it all comes out and all of that sort of jazz. But there's so much attention to detail that they do, especially if you've worked in fine dining, that is so resonant. And then on top of it, you have the dark comedy. So that's where the whole comedy thing comes in. Yeah, it's a dark comedy for like, that's it. It kind of ties into the whole being on the nose about how macabre it all is, and it's incredibly macabre. So if that's not something like, if suicide has touched you at a personal level and you are not okay with macabre humor centered around that, for real and for true, this is not the show for you. Seriously. But because that's exactly the route that it does go, and why it is classified as a comedy, because they play a lot of the emotional beats for the dark humor angle as they're trying to make their way towards each one of these characters developing. But all in all, I think there's highs and lows of each season, but as a whole, I mean, you're talking about overarching storytelling done nigh to perfection.
Masterful. It is masterful storytelling, and how it's written and how these characters are acting in it. Like it deserves everything. And it's similar. Like I'm a pastor, I'm a minister. I live church life and community life daily, 24/7. And so when someone recommends a religious show or something that deals with like some TV show, a regular TV show on main network about religion or their church or something, was like, it's hard for me to watch. I can't do it. Like, and even when people recommend like The Chosen, I don't know if I can watch this because I just, I live it, I do it. I don't know. I don't want to get irritated. I'm not saying it's not good, but I can't go there until my daughter was like, Dad, have you watched The Good Place? And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. It's going to trigger me. And then she goes, just watch the first episode. And then you're okay. And then when I watched it, I was like, yep, okay, this is right up my alley of humor. I love this show so much. And we were there all the time. And I love The Good Place. So it just, sometimes it hits you right, or if you're a right spot sometimes. But again, this isn't for everybody. In terms of like the writing, how they navigate relationships, and I leave every episode hungry or wanting to go get creative in the kitchen, even though the best thing I can do is an omelet. But we'll talk about omelets later.
I just make a cannoli dip, so very Italian.
Cannoli dip.
It is delicious. Let
See,
everyone know.
I think I haven't eaten dinner while we're doing this. Well, who knows? This is coming out on Thanksgiving. I may be full. You're listening to this, I may be already done with the
But aren't we
buffet.
all full in the Lord?
We are. Yeah. He is the bread of life.
To.
The bread of life. You're right. That's good pull. All right. Favorite character, scene, and/or episode. We can spend a little time here. It's hard to choose just one. So if you want to, if you have a main character and then a wing character you want to bring into it.
Can we also do characters we hate?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, the ones that you can't stand. We can do that too. Favorite or
I'm interested to hear Pang talk about which one she didn't like.
Oh man.
All right, we'll start with Joe and go counterclockwise again. Joe, what are some things that connected with you in terms of these characters? I know I'm glad you love this show, and we share that. But what are some favorite character scenes or an episode that really jumped out at you?
So for season 1, I episode 1, episode 7, and episode 8 are my 3 favorites of the season. The way the frenetic pacing happens in the first episode, and the way, like, if you've received a shipment in and have experienced that, or experienced life in a new kitchen, or have experienced those things, it is the way that they're able to hit the ground running while telling you a story that like, oh yeah, I've been there. Oh yeah, that tracks. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Is so well done. And in episode 7, you've got this whole preamble that happens, and then Carmy, they've got this one giant tracking shot throughout this entire episode, one unbroken shot. And it is supposed to display what happens when the crap hits the fan inside of a kitchen. And I can tell you, seriously, like, other than just turn off the pre-order option and stop people from being able to, like, how they handled it was that part of it was like, okay, come on. That part of it took me out of it a little bit. But outside of that,
but also, how did they get so many pre-orders when they probably didn't advertise it? Because they didn't do any, like, any well prep. This is not realistic.
That review from that critic could have done it. Like, that's in a small, like, in an area where so for anybody who doesn't know, Michelin star the system kind of has hubs. They have areas where you are more likely to end up with a Michelin star than other spots. Chicagoland is one of those spots. And so the whole food critic scene, all of that sort of stuff, that's a really heavy business, and that can really affect how much foot traffic you end up with. And so a food critic giving this shining recommendation for the restaurant, I mean, again, there are some parts where it is played. It's a TV show, right? Like you have to have your inciting event and all of that sort of stuff. But at least it was taking place in a place like Chicago and not like, I don't know, Nebraska or something along those lines where it's like middle of nowhere sort of place. But that tension and that palpability, my only complaint was I wanted to see what happened next. I wanted to see what else ended up happening in that episode. But to see the backlash and reaction that nobody in the situation, they didn't make it so that way any one individual was a problem because, or the problem rather, because you had Marcus, who he was in the wrong, but Carmi was also in the wrong. You have Sid, who she was in the wrong, but Carmi was in the wrong. And when she stops and looks at him and said, "You are an amazing chef, but you are also a piece of crap," and I'll keep it PG for the episode. You're welcome, Josh. It's that to me encapsulated the restaurant business for better and for worse, because I'll be the first one to stand in line and shout from the rooftops all of the things that are wrong with the restaurant business. That did such an amazing job of being able to capture the feel and the energy there, that to a point where it, like, if there was any one thing in that season that was so triggering for me, that was it. And then episode 8, I'm usually doing 18 different things at any one time. I'm usually like on my phone as I'm watching something, screwing around on my laptop or anything else like that. Carmi sits down and he starts giving this monologue. Y'all, seriously, I had my laptop in front of me. I just slowly closed my laptop and I sat back, and I won't go into every detail, but to hear him talk about, I cut onions and I got garlic under my nails and my skin was dry and oily and it was everything. Y'all, that's the life of a chef. That's legit the life of a chef. And to have him express this feeling of, the more I cut people out, the quieter I got, the better I got. And next thing you know, somebody I loved died. At a personal level, I felt every single solitary bit of that monologue.
Yeah,
I could keep going for the other 2 seasons, but I promise you,
well said, man.
I could go for 3 hours.
And I guess, did you guys, they have legit like superstar chefs that make cameos on this. Did you guys recognize who they were when they came? I was like, oh, that doesn't look like an actor. I bet that's a real chef that they got brought on, and they have like a consultant to talk about how things really happen in the kitchen.
What's the name of the mechanic guy? The guy that has to fix everything? The guy with all the I forgot his name.
You're talking about Fack.
Yeah,
Fack. Yes, Fack. He is a world-class chef. He's like one of the top. Yeah,
I did hear that too. Yeah, that's interesting. And it's no secret, I love superheroes. I love superhero books. I love the Avengers. I like Justice League. And when I see that kitchen, I see like a group of superheroes who have their own gifts and they have to work together. So you have a pastry chef, you have a line chef, you have those who are setting up the menu, you have the dishwasher. They work as a team. They are a superhero team in that. And they have to work in that kitchen. They have to work together and use their gifts in harmony with one another to make sure they pull off what they're trying to pull off. And so I'm watching this. I'm looking at all the gifts as someone who curates and nurtures community and teams and small groups and board of directors and church councils. Like, I'm also thinking of like, how do these gifts match up with one another? How can they work together? There's going to be disagreements. They're going to get mad at each other. They're going to scream at each other. They're going to vent against each other. But then you got to still come together and fulfill the purpose that's been entrusted to you, whether that's selling more sandwiches or whether you're trying to get a review from the restaurant biz. I couldn't help but think through those things. Evan, is there a character that you loved or didn't love, or you love to hate, or a season or episode that stuck out for you?
It was so hard to put any like one thought to this, because like what he was saying, that like everything is so raw and so real. And I was like, well, I would have to go with Carmi for my favorite character, because I can relate to wanting to get away from that family and then completely obsessing over your craft just to run away from that. I relate to that 100%. I did that with a very similar situation, and then being forced to come back to it in the way that he had to. Oh, but and then the scene. Well, no, I want to go with the scene for a cousin, for the a cousin character. He was
Richie.
Yeah. That culmination of him in, I think it's season 2, episode 7. It's where he's with at the end, where he's doing the Taylor Swift song, and he's just singing out to it, and I'm like, yes, go Richie, man. Like, yeah, I was just like, yes, like one of the most satisfying episodes ever. So good.
Yeah. I love that. And you see his character growth. I mean, what a character. He's going to play Ben Grimm in The Thing, in the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
You can see how he embodies that character. But it's one of those things where you see his character growth of like his trauma, but also him being mentored by somebody else other than Carmi. It'd be hard because Carmi's too close to him. They are too close for him to be able to mentor him or him to listen to anything he has to say. They're going to butt heads, and he can say everybody, but somebody else from the outside coming in to help bring him along to grow in that business. And I love when he comes back to Carmi and he's like all like dressed up nice and his character, but he's like, now I'm the expert and I'm the one to tell. That character guy was a beautiful moment in season 2, and that happened after episode 6, Fishes, where you had that kind of toxic family holiday meal that some of us may be around, right?
Holy cow!
Ready to gear up for it. That was peak, but yeah, good stuff.
I had to pause that episode and be like, do I want to finish this? Because
yes,
I don't know if I can finish
this. I really legit struggled hard with that episode. I'm with you, man, about resonating with the family dynamic of it all.
Yeah.
So going right there and seeing that, like, oh, that was hard.
Yep. I'd
heard to my wife, I was like, can we do it?
yeah, I heard about the episode, and it was one of those like strap in, and Cindy has some the same, in terms, we all have, family members that, that it's just, it can be hard, but we still love each other. But how do we come together? And so it's one of those things where, man, you gotta figure that stuff out. But all right, Liz, all right, what is it? Character you love or love to hate, or an episode or scene that you stuck with it? I'm proud of you. Not sure about season 4, but
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Do you want the favorite character or the one I hate?
I'm curious for both. Both.
Let's just call it what it is. Sid annoyed me so much.
Oh no, Liz, you're breaking my heart.
I knew it was going to be controversial, but listen, and then okay. Joe will get it. Here's the thing: when you are green, you know your place. You know what I mean? And like, ambition is great. That's great, but you freaking know your place. How dare you give a customer that risotto that's not on the menu?
Oh, that was a huge party foul.
Dare you? And then get upset for being. Here's the thing: you could be like, don't even say we have an extra. You could have been like, "Hey, I'm working on this new disc. It's not released yet. This is just me like practicing. Would you want to try something I'm creating? It's not on the menu." That's all you had to say. That's all you had to say, which is facts. instead of being a little butthurt about it. Little witch. Every time she opened her mouth, she aggravated me. I'm like, you chose this. No one's forcing you to work there. No one's forcing you to do all this. No one's and what? Like you want a piece
That's
of
what I
pie?
like on about season 4, where they leave off with her there. It's like,
And
oh yes,
and I'm
exactly.
all for, like, I give no one my loyalty when it comes to my, like, survival, besides Jesus. Jesus,
No.
you have my loyalty. But, like, here's the thing, like, I mean, granted, you wanted to do that, and I understand you have trauma, and as someone who has dealt with trauma and panic attacks and stuff like that, like, you just can't go have a panic attack every time something stresses you out. Like, you gotta go to therapy or something, And, but, like, just kinda it's so aggravating, and it's great that someone now, like, you have this experience and someone wants you, like, "I want you to do this. I want you to be in charge." That's a privilege, and you shouldn't be afraid to talk about that. Like, like, just tell Carmi, like, the reality is it's not a shock that that's a sinking ship.
I know that part of the show was they just needed one extra sentence in every conversation to say, you know what, I care about you. I'm doing the best I can. Like I feel like
Yes.
They were
they were
so
all really
selfish with
close.
their
You're just like you're
egos.
so close just to be transparent with each
Yeah.
other and be honest, and you're gonna be okay. But they didn't. They would just stop, and they weren't allowed to go that further. Yeah, she needs some therapy. She doesn't need to read Coach K's autobiography book. As a Tar Heel fan, I was highly offended that she was
Is that
reading
the one
the
is
coach
that
for
the
Duke.
one
Yeah.
that, it talks about, like, destroying everyone and, like, pretty much eating your competition? I've heard of, like, some kind of, um
Probably Coach
I
K.
I don't know. I remember a friend read something similar about how someone got to be the best. It's because, like, no apology, they just destroyed everyone in their way. And
Yeah,
I mean,
I
that's
don't know
one
if
way. I
that
mean,
book says that.
you see it from that one chef, and I get it. Like
Oh, David.
Carmi,
Oh.
honestly, it's hard for me to even pick a favorite character because everyone aggravated me. I literally hated everyone except Richie, because Richie, you had the best
Okay.
character development, and you're a good dad. So
Yeah.
kudos to you.
Good.
And the way he took his his ex-wife, like remarried and stuff like that, that's a gut punch. But he took it like a man.
That was
Like,
awesome.
that was
Yeah.
probably my favorite. And then favorite scene, I'm not saying I like either two of these. Natalie, I feel like, is innocent, and she's a product of not being loved by her mom. I can relate. But when when the computer was like, "We need to get rid of Marcus," she's like, "You screw with Marcus, you
Yeah.
screw with me."
I was
Yeah.
clapping. I was
That
clapping.
was probably my favorite scene in the whole, I was like, "Yes, finally
Calculator,
someone can."
they called them or something.
But I think that's one of the
The
few times someone
calculator.
actually
Yeah.
looked out for someone else and not themselves.
Yeah,
But
yeah. True.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She
Go ahead.
was the embodied, like Sid was the embodiment. If you've ever worked with somebody straight out of culinary school, and like that sort of
Mm.
you don't earn. I'm very, very much, you do not graduate from culinary school and become a chef. It is a title that you earn. It is a title that comes with experience and time. It does not come from a degree. Almost like there's a connection between the title of pastor and the title of chef, which I'm sure there's a whole conversation to be had there,
Oh,
but I digress.
yeah.
But she was so she so embodied that energy of somebody fresh out of culinary school, thinking that they had the world all figured out. And there's this scene where Carmi looks at her and says, "I know everybody that you worked for. I called them and they said that you're incredibly ambitious and you're good at what you do, but you're also incredibly green." And it was that moment where like he calls her out, and I'm like, yes, that is exactly how that would go if there was an old head looking at somebody that green trying to change the entire dynamic overnight like that.
Yeah, and there could be like, I'm sure it's in other places too, whether it's you're a wise and older dentist, who's someone coming right out of dentistry school, or a mechanic. Someone who's been working on cars for 40 years, and someone right out of a trade school to work on cars. And same way, like seminary, come out of seminary, and then those who've been in churches for a while and have experience pastoring and shepherding communities and churches. It's like you're fresh out of seminary and you just want to, your first sermon, you want to share everything you learned in Greek and biblical class in one sermon,
Your
and then
first sermon's not even that great anyway, let's be honest.
so there's that thing. But then I think you can also have like the older, set in their ways, experienced person, whatever trade you're in, pastor, chef, mechanic, or whatever, that not being able to listen to the younger who have fresh ideas or ideas coming up. So there's got to be that give and take of how, we want you to you got to earn your place and get some experience and get your 10,000 hours in. But there's got to be some give and take back and forth. And I definitely see that.
Yeah.
I love those characters too. I love Marcus and the the heart and him taking care of his mom in the midst of that. But then, wanting to learn the craft and the trade and being sent away to learn more, and the legendary that they've heard of Carmi and those kind of things. Just like how that, we'll talk a little bit more, some deeper themes there, but just that, just his heart is so good. I was going to say, I really like Sydney. I know she annoys you, but I like what she's trying to do, that she believes in Carmi, doesn't want to give up the internal struggle. Should I leave this guy or should I stick with it?
Mm-hmm.
And then her and her dad and her ambition, but also trying to figure out her work-life balance and whether it's worth it or not. That she kind of embodies that kind of internal struggle of loyalties. Who am I loyal to? But also my health and what's going to pay off later on, that draw and being pulled or being tempted by being poached by another restaurant, come work for us. But then her loyalty, like her loyalty to her dad, her loyalty to Carmi, and then seeing Carmi, I don't want him to become what he doesn't like, so I don't want him to become like his mentor David. I don't want him, he's had some good mentors that I would love him to become that way if he just gets out of the way instead of himself and his ego to let people see who, even his relationship, with his girlfriend, and
she was never his girlfriend. We never established that. He couldn't make a decision.
He sabotaged it. But in that whole image of being locked in the
freezer, man.
In the freezer.
It's not even that. It wasn't that cold.
I know.
As someone who scooped like 500 ice cream scoops in a freezer, that wasn't a bad thing.
He needed to cool out. He needed to chill out.
Well, it just shows, with anything, if the longer you neglect something, it's going to come back and bite you. When you cut corners, I always tell people, even with spending, when you go cheap, when you cut corners, when you try and just skirt by, it's going to show up. You don't know how, you don't know when, but Joe could probably relate. When you try and cut a corner, it's going to show up in anything, whether it's a system or a recipe or something.
Yeah, it goes back to the first question I asked at the beginning of this episode, in terms of how is this a cautionary tale, but also a microcosm of how the intentionality we put behind the communities we're a part of and the relationships we're a part of. I think is super important. I loved season 1 too. I like the lingo. I learned the lingo of the kitchen. My brother, when he's just cooking dinner for my parents and I walk in the kitchen, he's like behind or hands and I was like, why is he saying this? I was like, come on, Randy, why are you yelling at me? And I'm like, oh, now I understand my brother deeper. Oh, he's not mad or yelling at me. He's just trying to be more efficient in the kitchen. I love it. Okay, so I won't take it personal anymore. Season 2, episode 9, omelet. When Sydney cooks her, she's hungry, she's pregnant, and she cooks her an omelet and puts some potato chips on top of it. I was like, what? You can do that? I love cooking omelets. I'm like the breakfast master in our house.
Did you do it the French way, kind of like how they did it, or did you just kind of try and flip it? Because she rolled it.
She rolled it. I flip it.
I was just curious.
Yeah. I usually flip my omelets, but then, I I put potato chips last time I cooked an omelet. I put some potato chips on top
There
of
you
it.
go.
There you go. Sour cream and onion potato chips on top of that. Man,
And the way they shot that sequence with the eggs and the whole layering, like, of the whole procedure, I
mhm.
was just like, wow, this is a masterclass happening right in front of my face. This both the chef doing it and the cinematographer and the directing. It was just like, this is amazing.
Yeah. And I think the episode and what it kind of encapsulates how I see the show, season 3, the first episode, when it was just like how that particular episode was edited with the music and how nothing really happened other than some flashbacks. You get some insight of what's going on in this person's life, but I was on the edge of my seat. The way they layered the music on top of the editing and get an insight of who Carmi is. It was unbelievable. And so one of my favorite characters in the show is the soundtrack. Like the music that they layer on this to help you feel what's going on or intensify what's going on. The Sufjan Stevens, is that it? The Chicago song? I'm probably saying that band wrong, Sufjan Stevens. But I probably listen to that song now like once a week because of the show. It's so good. But yeah, and then I'll just his relationship with his toxic mentor that he can't stop thinking about. He cannot stop thinking about how he is just haunted.
I loved when he was like, I think about you, and the guy was like,
Yes.
I don't think about
I
you.
don't.
I don't think about you.
I
Yep.
was like,
Yeah.
oh shoot, but it's true though.
It is.
It is.
The
It's
people we
so
obsess about
true.
So
probably
good.
not thinking about you. And that
So
was a
good.
very powerful moment for me when I obsessed. at the
Carmi's
church.
face.
Yeah.
Like,
Because of the church
what?
that someone's probably mad at me because I didn't do this or whatever. They're probably not thinking of me.
Exactly.
They're not worried about me one bit. There might be some people are, but most of the time people are not thinking about Will Rose. So stop it.
Joe, did you ever
But-
have people like degrade you like that? Because I mean, obviously working in a kitchen, it doesn't even have to be like hostile in a mean way. It's just like we have to be loud so you hear us because there's
Right.
stuff going on, and you have to be direct because there's no time. So it gets a bad rap, like everyone's mean, but no, we have to be loud because it's safe, and we have to be direct because it saves time. So you're not really like, and you swear a lot because it's kind of like sailors, it's camaraderie and all that stuff. So it's not like really swearing. But like, if someone ever talked to me that way, to degrade me in such a way, like, yes, I've had strict mentoring. Like I had a German
what
chef,
the heck?
but I'm like,
Yeah.
what? But granted, we also see it in his family dynamic because his mom belittled him and like made it was very nice. So he didn't know boundaries and stuff like that. But because I've never experienced that kind of degrading in a kitchen, have you? I know it
Yeah.
happens. It happens in any workplace.
Yeah, Joe. How
Yeah.
about you? Yeah.
So I've seen it. My biggest thing is if I'm being fully and completely honest, I used to be way more of a hothead, and so if that as that happened to me when I was a young chef, I wouldn't stand for it. It was like it turned into an altercation when those things happened. We'll say it like that. But it's a mentality thing. So everything that you're saying is absolutely it. One of the best ways that I've heard the restaurant business referred to as is it invites pirates. It invites pirates to come to come, and because it gives you it gives a place for the misfits to be able to come together and to have an opportunity to be able to excel at something, and that unfortunately mixed into all of that has been a long-standing tradition of bringing people up, quote unquote, the right way, and that's toughening somebody up or bringing somebody in by kicking the crap out of them and all of this kind of stuff, and and a lot of it is kind of generational trauma. I was brought in this way, so I'm gonna bring the other people in this way, and people were
happened to
a
me,
dick
so I'm
to
gonna
me
make it
at
happen to
first,
you, right?
and exactly. So I think what you're talking about, Pang, is a yes and sort of dynamic where I think The entirety of the restaurant business as a whole is intense. It's frenetic. It's hot. It's direct. It's aggressive because it has to be, because everybody is cooking with things or dealing with things that if you don't handle well, you're going to get hurt, and you have literally seconds to minutes to get something from point A to point B out to the customer. And so there is no time to screw around. So you do
Right.
have to be all of these things, but likewise there's this undercurrent that like one of the things that I try to do now as I deal with younger chefs is try to be a little bit more of a mentoring hand, to try to maybe help facilitate a new day for the restaurant business that says you can take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that you
Mm.
can have
Mm.
a new day that isn't just about destroy yourself or destroy these young people coming in, because that's what it's that fire that creates the sharpest new chef.
Yeah, I think one of the we talk about like some of the what does this show reveal in regards to like the systems we're entangled with. Definitely mentorship, and then how do you pass on your craft or gift to someone else to build them up. And so there's different ways to talk about the difference between heroes and villains. Heroes want to help others, villains want the others to feel the same pain that they're feeling, kind of thing. And where are you passing on to the next? So I think a big part of this show that reveals to me is you see the different styles of chefs and different styles of restaurants, and what's healthy or not, but also like styles of mentorship. Are you really, I made, and David, the toxic mentor, is like, I made you better. I'm glad you're thinking about it every day, because that's driving you now to be better. So I did my job. I am not regretful or repentant at all, because good, then it worked. But then you see the person they went to in season 3 who is retiring, and you see how nurturing she was to Richie and helping him along. It doesn't mean that she, lowered her standards at all or compromised in any way, but she did say, took him under her wing and said, we're going to make you into the person that we think you can be, that's inside you. So that this whole idea of mentorship and leading people along, I think is a good masterclass in terms of self-reflect to me. How do I want to be as I get older in my profession and passing on the torch to younger pastors or ministers or disciples? How I'm going to mentor them. I don't want to be bitter. I don't want to like, oh, kid, if I go through this hard time, you got to go through this hard time. But like, but there's still the reality of like relationships are complicated and messy. But anyway, I think you guys get a picture of what I'm saying. Other things that perhaps this show might reveal in terms of what we're entangled with and just how we do life and faith and relationships. What do you guys think?
That pretty much everyone they are doing the work too, like they are processing everything. They are trying to do their best. They all have their family, they all have their jobs, and that's the key. Is like, how do you sync together and you treat each other like not as just a cog in a wheel, but as humans to make a product that is like worth your finitude. It's like
yeah. And I think you see that in Tina's flashback, right? Like,
oh wow, yes.
You see that she's a human.
Yeah.
If people just knew her story, who she was applying to, or what she was trying to do, if people just knew her backstory and the depth of who she was and the family she's taking care of, you'd see her as a human being who's doing the best she can as well. And then of course, like, yeah, she feels threatened by this new young cook coming into the Sydney's coming in, because she's like, I worked my butt off to get here and I have my opportunity. Michael is good to me. You're not going to come here and push me to the margin or tell me how to do things, because I'm already a part of this. So her seeing other person as human and understanding that they're doing the best they can with what they have, I think is pretty important too. Liz, anything there in terms of some things you think of in terms of what this show could reveal?
Go to therapy, everyone. Therapy is
well,
helpful.
yeah,
True.
yeah.
I feel like if anything,
Yes.
that's what y'all's takeaway need to be. But no, it's just one of those things. It's not, the world doesn't revolve around you. And so you just kind of see it, like even when like Carmi and Richie are in the screaming match, like you guys are both passionate, you just don't know how to direct and regulate your emotions. But once again, that is a skill that you develop and learn if you're in a safe space, and that they didn't have a safe space growing up. So as someone, like I said, with like a narcissistic mother and not having a safe space and not being like super close to my family, because I created those boundaries, and I'm like, this is toxic to my life, so I'm going to do this for me. They did not learn to create those boundaries because they did not have therapy. So sad for them. Poor Nat. Just wants her mother approval, and her birth was no lie. I just knew that the mom did not call Pete, and Pete was going to miss the birth. And I was so angry. I was angry about it. I just knew that she wanted to be the one to be there and be the pick me mom. I just knew it, but thank goodness I was wrong.
Yeah, I saw that coming too.
I was like,
we're definitely believers here at Sense My Geekology that you can love Jesus and have a therapist too. You don't have to choose either or. Is both.
Because I mean, when you bottle up and you can't process. So the whole point of, not the whole point, but like a big takeaway from the show is no one knew how to process their emotions, and no one knew how to feel, and so they became loud and irate and irritated and yelled because they had big feelings.
They run the cars into the living room.
Oh my gosh! Like I was like, this is. I'm like, this is really like it was similar to my family. Like as growing up and like literally like waking up and listening out to see if there was yelling or not before my feet even hit the door. Like that was like I lived that high anxiety environment, like not knowing if I was going to have a good day or a bad day based on the people around me, because it was their emotion and I had to like match their energy. Like, am I going to be quiet today, or am I going to try and be funny to make mom and dad laugh? And so like that's why it was just one of those, like I was like, this is really hitting home, which is what they wanted to do. So they succeeded, which is why it was not enjoyable to me.
And I think these shows, keep going, Liz. Go.
No, I'm just saying, but just kind of like that. I just feel like if people did relate to it, just kind of like do a self-evaluation. Not everyone is out to get you. Not everyone is out to screw you. Really, we're not that important if you think about this. Like we are one person in billions of people. Like, and it is bad, but it doesn't have to be that bad, you know? Like it's always feels super, super big in the moment. But when you take a step back and breathe, just don't serve the frickin' risotto, Sydney, you stupid. Fine.
And we these shows are important. I mean, there's other shows like it too, but they do. We tell these stories to help us cope and process what we've been through too. So you can see this as the entertainment value is cool. It's a great show, it's well written, but when you go deeper, like we try to do here at Systemic Ecology, hopefully it shows it reveals something to us or holds up a mirror to some things that we can go deeper with in our own lives and process. For me, one of the themes is this kind of work-life balance. Like, what are you chasing, and what are you compromising or sacrificing by chasing something that you feel like you need, whether to be the most successful or have the best at whatever. I think Carmi's sacrificing some relationships, important relationships, because he's chasing, we could get a Michelin star, we could do this, that work-life balance. And my brother too, asked him one day, I was like, well, don't you want to open up your restaurant one day? And he was like, not if I want to have a family and a life.
People ask me all the time why I don't open up my own bakery. And it's like, I enjoy doing the cakes on my free time when I want to do them. And I enjoy my steady paycheck from my 9 to 5, because nothing beats my steady paycheck from my 9 to 5 with my health insurance and my all the benefits. Like, nope. Yeah. And I will do my cakes when I feel like
if you can get if you can get that gig in the industry where there's reliability, it's a steady, safe environment, and all of that makes all of the sense in the world to not trade up and or attempt to trade up and open up your own place. I had the weird experience when watching through season 1 of going through ordination at the exact same time. And I had already, and having already worked in pastoral ministry before actually putting pen to paper and going through the ordination process and all of that, I had already kind of had it in the back of my mind that there are parallels between being a chef and being a pastor. And so I think that's part of where, for me, it was so resonant to see unpacking the layers of trauma that come along with life and come along with work and come along with chasing something with so much, because like when it's about the gig, when it's about the title, that's such a thing where everything becomes second. Like the whole idea of pushing everybody else out and it just being about the industry and just being about the gig and just being about how can I be the absolute best? How can I get to this point where a new stage comes in and I treat them like competition, and how I think to myself, I'm gonna smoke this dude to show them that I am the top dog. That to me, like to see David and to see how easy it is to pass that on, because I had that person of I'm going to grind you down to make you into the best possible version of yourself that you possibly can be, and then me trying to turn around and do that was one of the things that I like. We had to stop watching one episode, and when they were showing David, and I had to turn to my wife and start to explain to her, like, okay, so this is a personal perspective of what this looks like. And one of the biggest regrets that I had before entering back into the industry, I'll never work a line again. I'll never work in the kitchen again. Now I do it from like, you know, as I had time of being able to work private events and different things like that before breaking my leg and all of that. That was, every one of those had an opportunity where I was partnered with these young chefs that back in the day I would have, before I left the industry, I would have eaten their lunch and given them a hard lesson every single time, but a lesson that, yeah, you needed to learn, but I was going to make sure that you remembered it. Instead, this time around, I had the opportunity to be able to walk alongside them and say, hey, let me bring you up, but let me pour into you. Let me give you a solid experience that can help you grow as a chef. And it was finally this opportunity to be able to redeem this thing that, like I told my wife, was such a sore spot, that I was a raging dick back in the day in the kitchen. And to be able to then turn around and to give that to these young people and say, hey, this is where I've learned. Let me teach you a different way of doing this. My only hope is that then they'll turn around once they're an old head and give it to somebody else to be able to teach them maybe better than how we were brought up.
Yeah, I've definitely had some people and mentors and pastors in my life. There's definitely some that like were a cautionary tale where I was like, I do not want to be like that. I don't want to be. And thankfully I have a good wife and family that would hold me accountable to be like, nope, we're not going to let you be that way. But, and then there's people I know how they've made me feel, and but also challenged me and let me know that that's who I want to be. And that's kind of what I seek. So I think a lot of part of this show, the food is there. What are we cooking? What are we serving on the dish for other people? How we trying to impress each other, how we working as a team, all that comes into play with this. And I am curious with the cliffhanger at season 3, what this review is going to be for 4, whether Sydney's going to stay with them or not, or
she's going to stay. Everyone's going to be upset, or maybe not. I don't know.
I
It would be interesting to show
gone,
the competition. You know what I mean? Like almost like do the two, like she's like setting it up. But girl, I'm telling you, you got to do all that without the stress of it failing, because you got to live with your dad rent free, acting like it was so stressful. And then you dumb self didn't want a free place to stay anymore. You wanted to go into a thin wall thing and get aggravated when your dad tries to help you. Dumb. And then you have the audacity to say your dad's your best friend. Well, you don't listen to him. I just did not like her.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I can't wait
hey
to
guys.
see for what hurt. So, you got to bounce.
I got to bounce, but thank you guys for this.
Real quick, Evan. If you had bonus question, we usually do bonus question for Patreon, but here's for everyone to see.
All right.
For Lore, for other things, your current favorite restaurant. If you had to go like right now, your favorite restaurant, you could go anywhere to eat tonight, and you get money's not an expense. Where would you go?
We went for my birthday. The Whispering Canyon Cafe at the Wilderness Lodge on Disney property.
Nice. Okay.
That was amazing. The atmosphere. They were making fun of you, but they were still loving. And there was a big party atmosphere and stuff. And the food was the big like family style restaurant. So
Nice.
it was
Love
really
it.
great.
Cool. Hey,
Thank
when you
you,
hop
guys.
off, leave it on. Don't.
Okay.
I'm gonna take you off screen, but stay on there just so it'll load up.
All right. Thank you.
Later. All right.
All right.
All right, buddy. Thanks. See ya. All right, Joe. Favorite restaurant right now? Current favorite restaurant? If you could go anywhere, money's not an option. If you could go anywhere tonight, what would you? Where would you go?
There is an Italian joint in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Sicilian, like the classically trained Italian place called Piazza Sorrento's. That is like Pang will know exactly what I'm saying. When a chef eats at a place and is inspired by the food, that place is something special.
Nice.
And that was when I had the food there, it literally inspired me as somebody who is classically trained in Italian cuisine and all of that. But the way that they're able to marry the worlds of high Italian and like tavern food, and the marriage that they make between those two is just absolutely out of bounds.
Nice. Yeah, I took Liz to a pastry place. She was on the way to North Carolina Comic-Con, Christian, and
It
Pang and I
wasn't a
went.
cream puff.
And she had her critic mind on her
Because they gave me a cream puff that wasn't made out of pat choux dough. How dare
Right?
you do that? It
How
was
dare.
made from puff
Yeah.
pastry.
Ah.
And it wasn't piped. You don't give me a cream puff like that.
All right,
Not a
restaurant. You could go anywhere tonight for dinner. Money's not an issue. Where would you go?
So if I'm going tonight, it would probably be Hall's Chop House, which is a family-owned steakhouse in downtown Charleston. So they have like the best steaks. They have a grass-fed beef that's just like really good. So you get like the notes of like the earth, like mushrooms, and like it's really nice. But if we're not going like more taste, I was also going to choose a Disney resort, which was Ohana. Ohana, I love. It's like literally Halls, and then Ohana is like the best food ever, and it's all you care to eat. So my mind is also associating quantity and quality, and you don't usually get both. And so that really impressed me. Usually, if it's you have to choose one or the other, but Ohana was both, and I was like, this is cool. Fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, there's a fried chicken place, hot chicken place in Asheville, North Carolina, Rocky's Hot Chicken, that when we go up there for camp, I have to go there a couple times a week. It's so good. They do the best. I'm a fried chicken connoisseur, and the way they season it, I don't even get it hot. I just kind of get their natural, general. But then there's an Italian restaurant right down the road in Carborough, Tesoro, that I had a dish the other night that they mixed in some sausage and beef and Kobe beef into a mushroom sauce pasta that probably the best dish I've ever had. Like I've been thinking about it for like weeks. Like I want to go back to this place and get it, but they changed the menu, so who knows if I'll be there next time. But yeah, super good. Well, go in.
Before we wrap up, can I make a recommendation for folks that are watching this that are of the Christian persuasion?
Yes.
There is he actually showed up in the episode of the third season when they were doing the funeral for Grace. There's this book that was put out I don't know, I think about a decade ago, called Unreasonable Hospitality. It was written by one of the two owners of 11 Madison Park. And the whole gimmick behind this place is that the place that Richie stages at is supposed to be based around ELP. And it's the whole idea is they're very they anticipate your needs. They don't cross talk to each other. They pass notes, the whole 9 yards. But this dude wrote this book about how such a key in life, in whatever it is that you do, is providing unreasonable hospitality. And I was never like, coming up in the industry, I was very much one of those guys that it's more about the food than it is about the back of the house. But there's this line that he has in the book, that if you have a restaurant that's run by the back of the house, you'll have amazing food, but nobody will show up because the service will be terrible. If you have a place that's run off of the front of the house, they'll have an amazing experience, but the kitchen will be a wreck. That it has to be run from somebody on both sides of the wall. And he talks about how there's this posture of unreasonable hospitality that you have to have in life to be able to provide value to people. And as a chef, as a pastor, as a business owner, on so many levels, this book so spoke to me. And so there's this idea of providing value, providing hospitality that you're going to see revisited, especially in seasons 2 and 3, as they're trying to go after the Michelin star, as they're trying to really dial in what it means to be able to provide this experience for people. That I think that, yes, not every single moment of that book, if you haven't been in the restaurant business, will resonate, but there is a through line that you can draw, especially if you are in ministry and a Christian.
Man, I absolutely love that recommendation, because I think you're 100% right. As you're doing that balance, it's not only just work-life balance within yourself and your emotional maturity with others and family and friends, but also, like, yeah, how you're running that house, as you said, whether it's a house of faith or your own house or a restaurant. And I'm going to write that down, because I would love to look at that, and with our new church council coming in, or even like a staff retreat, have the staff read it and look at it and talk about, how are we practicing hospitality here in this place, but having that balance from the front or the back of the house of what people are experiencing in your midst. You can't meet everybody's expectations, but you can have that kind of posture of hospitality for all people. I think is super important. And man, what a good way to end, Joe. That's absolutely great, and I'm going to check it out. Is it a thick book? Really thick? Thin? Can you read it? Is it a good book to study
it's pretty approachable. It's pretty approachable. I listened to it through Audible, and it was a pretty approachable listen.
Nice. Folks, thanks for joining us. What a fun episode. I could talk about the show forever. We'll loop back around when season 4 comes out at some point. And we hope everyone had just a fantastic Thanksgiving as we head into the holiday season. We know it can be touchy. Sometimes it really is the greatest time of year for people, and sometimes it's the hardest for others. And so know that you're not alone, that you are loved. We are here for you if you need to reach out for anything, ask a question, or just to have us remind you that you are loved and that you are a child of God. Please do so. And remember, we are all chefs of love, grace, and gratitude.
Chef's kiss.